please do send us questions and comments, and Sarah and myself will be looking through those, and we will have a formal Q&A at the end of the presentation as well. So if you have any questions that come up, just type them in. We'll try and keep an eye on them as we're going, but if we miss them during a certain slide, we'll definitely circle back to them. As you may have heard us talking, we're a few participants short from what we had seen on the attendee list, but that's all right. This session is going to be recorded. I believe it's going to be posted on the Community Futures Facebook page, as well as I think you'll be able to get a link sent out to you if you'd like as well. So we'd like to start off by thanking Community Futures for hosting this and inviting us to present tonight. We're really excited to be here. This is part one of a two-part webinar series that we will be looking at the breakdown in just a moment. So we're going to start with a little bit on Synergize. Sorry, there's those technical difficulties. There we go. So in a nutshell, we are passionate people helping passionate people grow their businesses. That is what Synergize is. That's what me and Sarah do. And it all started after years of watching passionate people struggle due to limited resources and seeing firsthand the disappointment in the faces of passionate people as they turn down all or nothing solutions offered at out of reach price points. We found our calling and we began work on Synergize.
So Synergize basically integrates your current programs with practical and stepwise solutions to optimize your business. Our team offers more than 20 years of combined experience and uses a collaborative approach to enhance your potential and cultivate growth. Our intent is to help you optimize available resources and identify synergies to leverage new ways of moving forward. One of the best examples of that is that we do connect with a lot of free resources, government resources, and things like that, and help utilize those to get the most out of those resources before we help take you to the next level. And so that's about basically conserving your resources. And if something can help you for free to review your business plan or your business plan, we can come in and we can bring the fresh perspective and that collaborative consulting and move you even farther on a smaller budget or on those limited resources. So in introductions, I'm going to be introducing my sister, Hannah. She has spent the last 10 years in the optometry industry with a focus on management, training, and business consulting, and currently holds position as Regional Account Manager for Optometric Services, Inc., which is the largest and longest running buying group of independent optometrists in Canada. Her region includes more than 85 clinics, and she has taught over 250 seminars, not webinars, but seminars. And decidedly an optimist, my sister Hannah is a strong believer in positive mindset and passionately pursues meditation. Outside of work, she enjoys trying new food and spending time with her friends and family.
Perfect. Thank you for the intro. So my sister Sarah is a passionate business professional with over 10 years of hands-on business experience. She has her business degree with specialization in sales and marketing. She has worked in economic development as a paid position as well as a volunteer for a total of 8 years for the town of Ponoka. She also has ongoing connections with Access Prosperity, which is Alberta's leader in transactional economic development. She's a bit of a nature nut at heart, and Sarah loves gardening and outdoor adventures with her 2 young boys, as well as creative repurposing projects when she finds the time. I just need to let somebody in the room.
So why we are passionate? A lot of people ask, what exactly does Synergize mean? And for anybody who isn't sure, Synergize is actually one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, as stated in Stephen Covey's best-selling book. By the way, I have a parrot in the background, so I apologize for the strange noises. I cannot make him be quiet. Essentially, Synergize means to produce a greater end result together than otherwise possible independently. And Hannah, when you have a minute, I'll get you to switch the slide because I do not have moderator control. And are you ready? Do you want to take over? Or I can keep going if you're still letting people in.
I'll just let this, we got one more person that just joined us there too.
Okay. We got a little bit of humor here for you folks anyways. Not sure, you guys have probably seen this one already, but we thought it was a good icebreaker for the evening. I'm sure many of us can relate to the feeling of this being all the year. Oh.
For the ones
that are like kids, right? We can't, there's no control.
You might want to just repeat that for those that just joined us, that's a parrot and not a...
It is a parrot. That is my parrot. He's an African gray parrot. You can't make a turtle come out of his shell, and you really cannot make a parrot be quiet. I will try to cover him up, and that may help. But Hannah, do you want me to keep going? Are you ready? And I'll go cover the parrot up while you keep going.
Perfect. Sounds good. So on a more serious note, there's hardly been a better time where this particular quote was more relevant. So it says, change is inevitable, but growth is optional. So now is the time to recognize what the new normal looks like for all of us and to continually grow from the ongoing experience. Our goal tonight is to help you in charting a course forward and looking for growth shoots of opportunity. We're going to now take a look at what the breakdown of tonight's objectives are. Sorry, went a little bit too quick there. So tonight we're going to look at pivoting. We're going to look at working on your business and how we can break that down into a functional business strategy. We're also going to look at generosity as its own strategy. And then we're going to conclude with some examples of successful pivots. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is a two-part webinar. So part 2 will be in 2 weeks from today. So that will be Thursday, June 11th. 7:30 till 9 Alberta time. For those of you a little further away, it will be the same time as it is now.
Standard.
Yeah, exactly.
Alberta time.
So the breakdown of what we're going to go through during that second part is we're going to look at leadership strategies. We're going to look at what it is to stay connected with your team, what your re-onboarding plan should include. We're going to take a little bit of a look at team building and morale, customer service, and conflict management, as well as how to resolve disputes. So stay tuned for that second part. So let's dive in then tonight. So we're going to start with looking at what is pivoting. Well, pivoting is a shift to a new strategy. Pivoting is focusing on a different set of customers or customer needs by positioning your business and your brand differently. Examples of that would be new, modified, or different approaches to your products or your services. And it's basically just satisfying your customers' needs a little bit differently now than you were before. We're gonna now go in and look at, sorry, my notes are a little bit of a mess right now.
So how do I know if I should pivot is the next component that we're gonna dig into here. So here's a checklist to consider when evaluating if you should pivot. If your company is progressing slowly, despite the amount of work you're putting in, specifically look for gaps in the marketplace and ways of differentiating your value offering to serve those unserved spaces. If anybody's heard of the Blue Ocean Strategy, basically it is a book by W. Chan Kim and Renee Mulburn. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her name right, but it is a really great book. A blue ocean is finding fresh, new, or up-and-coming markets or spaces to serve. And a red ocean is basically competing for a small slice of the current market share. And there's a lot of examples of how people can find new spaces. I think the pandemic has really brought around to everybody how we found new spaces that we didn't even know existed within healthcare, mask making, hand sanitizer, and some of the pivots that we've seen people do, and the completely new markets that are springing out of this from all of the work from home changes that people have done. And we'll dig into more of those as we go. So if you're feeling stuck in a rut or you're not seeing the growth you want, then this is time to look for those growth shoots of opportunity, and those can be found in pivots. If one aspect of your company is succeeding better than other areas, this could be a growth shoot of opportunity. We're going to use that a lot. It's a new and exciting term that's coming. For your company to focus on capitalizing on what is working. So realign your strategy, allocate more resources to what is working, and adapt, change, or completely ditch what isn't working. Basically, stop whatever isn't helping. The market has changed. Our customers have also changed. As a general rule, they have changed because of the emotional and the financial toll that most people have experienced recently. And that brings us to our new normal and where we are today and how do we move forward. So from the digital and remote workspace revolution to smaller adjustments like private shopping, curbside deliveries, the ecosystem has changed for businesses everywhere. Many customers' needs have shifted or changed, and experts are agreeing they are going to stay that way for the foreseeable future. So our strategies to reflect this reality. But evolving, fluid, and flexible doesn't mean uncoordinated. So we need to learn through this experience, and it's never been better to be raw, real, and honest, hence the parrot in my background. And transparency and authenticity are really key, and our customers are going to see that and they are connecting to that, and that is part of the new normal, which is actually sort of a silver lining in and of itself. So I'm going to throw it back to Hannah. Hannah, how do I effectively pivot?
That's a good question, Sarah. So here's a few things to consider when you're looking at how to effectively pivot. So the first point is do it as soon as possible. Many companies pivot more than once, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with pivoting more than once, especially when we're looking at how to get your company on the right track. So pivoting sooner rather than later can also help conserve your resources. So if we wait too long, that's not necessarily a good thing as well. And like Sarah had mentioned before, stop the things that aren't working. The second thing we're going to look at here is picking new goals that align with your vision. So if the path that you're on doesn't feel right for you, you not only need to step back and reevaluate, but you also need to ensure that the vision that you have is the right one and that it's the right one for your customers. The third point we have here is don't scrap the work you've already done. This is a really important one. So pivoting does not mean starting from zero. And that's kind of a common misconception. It's about identifying which aspects of your company can be moved forward. What is working? Those are the things you want to shift forward. You've already spent so much time, energy, and money on building your business. It's important that you're not starting from the ground. It's just about shifting those resources and aligning them with your new goals. Sorry, I'm not finished going through that one yet. The third one is, the fourth one is listen to your customers. So the feedback that you've received from your customers is a great indicator of whether you should pivot or not. So really important to be getting that feedback from your customers and listening to it. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're listening to every little piece of advice or input that your customers have, but it's just in a whole listening to what your customers are asking for. If you continually hear from your customers that it's hard to place an order on your website or your hours are inconvenient, these are things that should make you consider pivoting and should be a consideration in how to effectively pivot. The last one we'll look at here is make sure that your pivot presents opportunities for growth. So find need clusters and test out your pivot. Can be a good way to review market indicators on whether or not to pursue a pivot opportunity. The keys to look for here would be high value and speed to market. And yeah, so just to touch on what we're talking about when we're talking about testing your pivot on a need cluster, it would be to test out on a sample of about 50 people. So I guess just pulling an example would be, maybe you've heard continuously that your hours are not convenient. Your hours are not convenient. Maybe you could have a sample day where you opened on, let's say, a Saturday or an extended into an evening, and sample that out a few times to see if it's worth pivoting fully or fully investing into that. So yeah. A sample size about 50. So when we're talking about products or services, that's where you would test it, I guess, more on those 50 people. But you could also test these pivots, like I said, with just making small adjustments temporarily, just to see what the feedback is.
Hannah, I'll jump in really quick and I'll add one more thing, which is on a recent webinar that I did with HubSpot, they actually indicated something that has been a trend in business for a long time, but it's sort of really coming to the forefront now, which is actually having a advisory group of your customers and sometimes even vendors, and asking them for feedback, and just having, so when we're talking about having a need cluster or testing a pivot, if you have an idea, you have a strategy, you have something that you really just aren't sure if it's going to fly, but you need to get some feedback, take those top customers of yours, those long-standing customers, the best customers that you have, ask them, bring them into an informal, formal, whatever format is more comfortable for you, and an advisory panel, and give them some of those questions and get their feedback and get I suppose that hands-on information from them on their response. And like a sample size of 50 people is good for most things. That's sort of statistical data wise. But even if it's 12 or 20 customers that are your closest customers, they can usually be a good indicator of whether or not you should pursue it further. So, and Hannah, I'll turn it back to you, and you can talk to us about working on your business.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously, you need to kind of adapt that sample size of 50 people that I mentioned to what works for you. If you have a core customer group of a smaller amount, then that's great to test on that as well. So yeah, let's look ahead at working on your business. So the struggle for most businesses is that they find that they spend more time working in their business rather than working on their business. And this is pretty common for a lot of business owners. So I suppose one of the silver linings from this recent pandemic has been that it's given people more of a chance to reflect on their business. So some areas that you may want to consider are assessing your programs and value offerings. That would be probably one of the first and easiest things to assess, would be considering, your programs and value offerings. Are they still relevant? Are they working for you? Or are they something that you need to pivot on? The second thing would be connecting your strategies. So connect your strategies to build your brand, and then make sure you promote it. The second part to this, that's kind of the key here, is to make sure that consistency of your brand and messaging is across your whole team. You want to make sure that your whole team is aware of your brand and kind of the strategies you're going for, so you're all able to effectively communicate that. The way I like to look at that is you don't want to be your best kept secret. So if you're very familiar with your brand and kind of the direction you guys are going and your goals and everything else that way, you want to make sure that your team is aware of that as well, so that brand can really be communicated. The next thing that we'll look at is getting active on social media. So there's been some recent statistics that have shown an increase of 60% engagement across social media platforms. So that's a pretty significant increase there. And I know that being active on social media can kind of seem like a huge task. It's something that Sarah and I, as a business with Synergize, have also kind of had to go through, and it does take time and a lot of effort. But now would be a great time to undertake any kind of training resources that you can get your hands on. I know that there's been some free online ones, just any kind of training that you could possibly do for your social media. Now would be a good time. This is also a good time to spend on building your content and engaging with your customers. Being that there's such an increase on these platforms, this is a great time to be engaging with your customers and just really be present. The last thing is evaluate your physical space requirements. So many businesses have found that their space requirements have changed. Some businesses have found that they had maybe more space or have more space than they actually need now. And then on the flip side of that, some businesses have also found that maybe they don't have enough space due to social distancing protocols. It really depends on the industry you're in and kind of what kind of business you are, I suppose. But it's something that you definitely should be kind of evaluating and looking into if your space requirements are adequate. The last part of that on evaluating your physical environment would be consider renovating, rejuvenating, or deep cleaning your office space. This is a great time to do that. And if funds are available, this would also be a great way to support other local businesses. Do you have anything to add to any of that, Sarah?
I think we'll get into it just when we're talking about the functional business strategy. So I think that's good.
Perfect.
So that moves into our functional business strategy. And if you guys have anything that you want to chime in here, we do have a Q&A session at the end, but if you want to get a question out, by all means, we're going to have more examples too at the end. So for functional business strategy, it breaks down your business into units and assesses areas where pivoting or strategic changes could be applied. But a functional business strategy is actually a short-term plan for achieving goals across departments. So that's the part that we talked about earlier when we talked about connecting your strategies. You have to have independent strategies for each department, but we do need to connect them all at some point. So this is that breakdown, and then this will allow us to go back and reconnect. So on operational strategy, the points to consider: creating a matrix of your vendors, which includes essential functions and processes in your businesses and critical resources to your business to adjust operations more efficiently. Just basically having everything laid out on paper, having those timelines and those people and those connections and all those things that you need will be really, really helpful I know that we're sort of in some ways coming through the pandemic, but there's always little unforeseeable things, and there's always going to be the next future thing. So it might seem like it's too late for some of these things, but it's not, because these are all core business building blocks that will increase your efficiencies for the future. Diversify your sourcing. This is the same thing. Evaluate and qualify alternative vendors. Just have that on the back burner. Look at your local supply chain options if you're not already sourcing locally, or other alternative local supply chain options as backups. Yeah.
I think you're cutting out a little bit. I'm not sure if anybody else is hearing that, but it was just a little bit choppy. Maybe just repeat that. Yeah, okay. Yes, you said yes there. You're cutting out. Maybe just repeat that.
Okay.
Your internet's just kind of cutting in and out sporadically.
Sorry, guys. I don't know. I'm apparently rural. Okay. Just, did you hear diversify sourcing? We're good there? Or do you want me to go back?
Maybe just start there.
Okay. So diversify your sourcing, evaluate, qualify alternative vendors, look at your local supply chain options. If you're not already, if you are already sourcing locally, look at what the alternatives are locally, or how maybe you can branch out to another community or something, in terms of trying to maintain a local supply chain, but also having those backups to really create that security in your business. Forecasting your supplies more frequently and communicating across all organizational levels what those supplies, like what supplies are needed and what is actually going to be used and required across the different department levels. Some of us are very small businesses, so that might not be as difficult to communicate interdepartmentally, but as you get bigger, that can definitely be something where the supplies run low and then people aren't telling you in advance enough that you need things. And then the timelines have changed in which it is to get those things, and that's where we end up with issues. So if everybody is aware that there's a specific time frame in which things need to be ordered in advance, that can really help alleviate those pinches of not having things, especially in times of pandemic. Frequent communication with critical vendors on supply and schedule. Again, just another piece that will help kind of maneuver your company forward through any of those pinch points. Moving into marketing strategy. Is everybody hearing me okay now?
Yeah, I think
you're better. Okay. Hyper relevance is the new term. And basically what that means is who needs your products and services the most, and how do you get it to them? So how to be of service and helpful, offer relevant, timely value, provide lists or examples to your customers of how to use your product or service, explain how your product can be of value. An example of this is actually, there was an oyster company that I saw that had a really great mock-up with the nutritional value of their oysters, and had an example of a ad where they very clearly communicated the value of the oysters, and then said, you know, we ship them right to your door. So there's, you know, what do I want to say here? It's a really good way to communicate your value, but also to be helpful and service your customers at the same time when you look at their pain points or the things that they're needing and concerned about right now, and then communicating on that level with them. This goes into what most of you have already heard around offering virtual events, private shopping. You know, there's a little greenhouse here that's actually offering private shopping hours for people, and that attests to people's comfort and allows people to feel more comfortable when shopping there, which is just beautiful. Curbside and delivery options. And finally, I want to jump into B2B marketing a bit on the strategy, just in case it's relevant for anybody, because the information is sort of, with the tightening of the economy, we've jumped back 15 years in how things are done. So now if you're selling business to business, you are selling more to the top of the organization. Basically, what's happened is the purse strings have been reeled in, and now if you want to talk to somebody, if you want to sell your product to somebody in a company, you're going to need to talk to the top, because that's where the decisions are being made. And so calling, emailing, and direct solicitation of the higher levels of that organization are going to be the pieces that you need to focus on if you're doing B2B with marketing your product or service. So jumping in a financial strategy, cut costs.
I just wanted to just really elaborate on something that you mentioned there, because I just think it's really important when we're looking at the marketing strategy. You mentioned, you know, finding those pain points and then really like communicating how you can solve them. I think that's a really, really important marketing strategy right now that that all businesses, and specifically you know, small business right now, should be looking at, is finding what those pain points are, and that's probably going to be one of your kind of easiest, quickest ways to pivot, is by looking at those pain points and figuring out how you're able to pivot to be able to satisfy those needs, and then marketing it out to your customers. So I wanted to just put a little bit more of an emphasis on that, because I think that there's a lot to be had with just looking at that hyper relevance for your customers.
Well, and another point that we can add into that is map your customer's journey. That's also very important. So when you look at your customers and how you're going to be meeting their needs, it's not about the one piece of interaction of selling them the product or the service. It's about their entire journey with your company, because of course we talked about retention being important. So if you're looking at how do I retain my customers, it's about mapping that journey. So it's about looking at all the pieces of their interactions with your company, from the start of the process through the end of the process, through hopefully the repurchase, and looking at what that journey looks like for your customer, and what do you want that journey to look like? What do you want them to feel like as they're interacting with your company at different levels, different parts of the buying process? So I'll jump back in on resources, or sorry, on financial strategies.
You're cutting out a little bit.
I'm gonna go. Okay, I'll maybe sit closer. Maybe that'll help. I'm not sure. So financials
better right now.
It what?
I said I don't think that's how it works, but it does sound better right now, so we'll try it.
Let's just go with that. Financial strategy: cut costs, stop what isn't helping. We already discussed that, but it merits re-saying. If you've got a marketing strategy, if you've got anything kind of on the go that's costing you extra money and you don't see returns on it, pull the plug as much as possible and conserve your resources to align them with the goals and the strategies that actually need to happen right now. There is a big focus on sort of that short-term planning, the short-term goals and needs and priorities right now. And then we're kind of melding that with the long term. Those mid-range goals aren't really the important thing right now. Right now, it's that short-term planning, short-term priorities, and then melding that with the long term. And that's kind of how we have to get through the pandemic. And so let's jump back in, explore ways to generate cash flow. Once again, that short-term, long-term melding. Finding need clusters, as Hannah mentioned, to test out your pivot. That can create small revenue hits as well. So if you have 50 people that you're testing different products and service variations on, that's a good way of creating small revenue hits. Look at what you can repurpose within the company. As Hannah mentioned, don't start from scratch. Look at, if something's not working right now, how can we repurpose it? Is there a way to create value from it, or even sell it if needed? A lot of companies, you can sell a division or a portion or a piece of the company if it's not working to another company who's happy to have that sales list or whatever it is. And then going back into the earlier mention of space requirements, looking at subletting or shared space situations. If you're in too big of a space and you no longer require it within social distancing, maybe there's a way to work with that and change some of those options, even if you are in a lease agreement. In human resources, leadership must be flexible, demonstrative, and connected. The key here is the lead empathy, and that is going to reflect down into your team and into your customers. It's sort of a top-down, it's all about empathy right now. Attainable goals to help your team and prevent them from feeling overwhelmed and allowing extra time for the new cleaning protocols. And something that was really cool, CBC did an interview with a restaurant owner who was not going to be reopening despite the changes in local legislation here in Canada. And she specifically identified something that I really like, so we're going to use it here, and it was a tummy check, which is basically a team comfort check. Go with your gut instinct. Their particular situation is their space was too small to make social distancing really work, and they couldn't provide the experience they wanted to provide to their customers by reopening right now, more than just doing the deliveries and things that they were doing. So they weren't actually reopening their physical store space. They on a tummy check, and I think those things are really important. Talking to your team, seeing what everybody's comfort level is, and then doing what's right for your business. And meeting before re-onboarding. Hannah will get into re-onboarding in the second part of this webinar, but we did want to mention right here under resources, connect with your team and meet with them if you are re-onboarding people. Having a meeting before you actually jump back into the gauntlet when the physical spaces are opened up again is a really good way of connecting with your team and just growing that empathy factor and having those sort of candid discussions, seeing how everybody is, doing those team comfort checks and all of that. And in addition to, we want to say one of the big trends has been increased frequency of meetings and checkpoints, even if they are virtual. But daily and weekly meetings and checkpoints with your team are very, very important. One of the things that, once again, I'll use HubSpot, they were suggesting is like a 13-minute daily meeting with the team. It had gone a long ways to creating energy and vigor and helping everybody in their team feel connected. Which is just really about honesty and continuity and letting your team know when things change. So not taking a long time to necessarily process things from the top and let it trickle down, but to just be open and honest and forward and communicate quickly to your team about what's going on and why things are happening the way they're happening, or what's going on with different decisions within the company. And that brings us into generosity as a strategy.
Can I just touch on just one little on human resources there? So we went through the objectives for our next webinar for part 2. And a lot of that webinar is based more around human resources. So I don't want to take up too much time here. Sarah, you did a good job at going through this, but I just wanted to touch on one part of it. You had mentioned setting attainable goals for your team. I think it's really important to note that although we're coming back to, you know, we hear it all the time, this new normal, and we're not quite sure what that new normal looks like, it is still important to be setting goals for your team. It's just important that they're attainable, because if they're not attainable, they're just going to be discouraging to your team. But not setting goals because you don't know what that's going to look like, or you're still adjusting, isn't a good idea either, because you still want to motivate them. So like I said, we'll get into it a little bit more next in 2 weeks, I guess, on our next part of our webinar. But I just wanted to really emphasize the importance of setting goals for your team right now.
Even if they are below what you would have set pre-COVID, right? Yeah. And so this is going to lead us beyond the functional business strategy. A new strategy that you guys have all probably seen a lot of is specifically generosity, which is its own strategy. And there's a lot of ways of applying this. So I'm going to break down a few points here for you guys, because generosity can be done well, and it can really help you stand out from your competition, set your brand apart. But there are some really key pieces here that can help you do it strategically, so you're not just giving things away for free and not receiving value in return. So according to Forbes, acquiring a new customer can cost 5 times more than retaining an existing customer. So this creates a drive to engage your customers and strengthen the relationships with the customers that you have that matter the most. So you can identify who your most important customers are for a variety of reasons: longest standing, highest spenders, however you want to segment them. Identify those customers, offer free upgrades to already charged items. Sorry, Hannah, was I cutting out again?
You were at the beginning, but I think it was pretty good. You were going good. Yep.
Okay, are we good? Did we catch the Forbes quote for?
I think so.
Okay. Okay, we're good.
I heard it, but I also know it. So
I'm like, it's 5, yeah, acquiring a new customer can cost 5 times more than retaining your current customer. So we really want to focus on the current customer and make them happy. And so one of the things is, and retention is really the key right now with our customer base, because it really is the best both short and long-term goal plan for right now. Free upgrades, charged items, services. The key is to extract value you're giving to them.
Microphone's cutting.
Oh, is it? Okay. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I don't know how to fix this. I'm sorry, I'm not technologically adept. I'm still working on this.
I don't know. I think.
Is it better? Okay. Everything in my house is turned off. I have no idea how to make it better.
Including her phone on airplane mode. So that
my phone is on airplane mode. If something was happening in the world, I would have no idea. So offering free upgrades to charged items or services from your current customers and expressing your sincere customer appreciation to them. And along with expressing that sincere appreciation, specifically identifying the value you're providing to them is important. It's important for people to know that they're receiving something of value, because most of the time when we give something away for free, people tend to think it was free, but there is a value attached to it. So aligning with your customers and offering those free items that are of value and communicating that value in appreciation of your customers is really, I suppose, the comprehensive strategy. Capturing new leads. So for capturing new leads, reciprocity, we'd like to think that if I do something good for you, you'll do something good for me. And that's how the world works. And sometimes that's very true, and I love it, but it doesn't always work in business. And so there is a key to capture new leads with freebies. And that key is to make sure that the leads become part of your sales funnel. So how you do that is you make sure that if you are giving them something of value, you're receiving something in return, which is usually their contact information, and email will suffice. It doesn't need to be a lot. If you make it complicated, people cut bait. In order to generate leads, you need to make the whole experience relevant to your ideal prospects and align with the goals and interests of those target customers. So it needs to be the right thing for those target customers. And then you need to make sure that you integrate them into your sales funnel by getting an email from them in order for them to receive the free product or service, so that you generate that reciprocal value of having a relationship began that you can hopefully nurture into a sales relationship. And then that brings us into nurturing current prospects. Know what you're gifting and know what your customer still needs for you. And I know me and Hannah have talked about this. This is something that's sitting down and looking at what can we give to people and what is the value and the help and the service that we can provide in gifting this. And then what are the things that we know that they still have to come to us in order to get, and that we can provide that paid value, because at the end of the day, as a business, we all need to get paid. That's why we're in business. And last but not least, team appreciation with generosity. Once again, be generous to your team. They will remember how you treat them. It will build loyalty, which builds productivity and motivation, and it will reflect down through to your customers. So that generosity is really, once again, a top-down strategy. And Hannah, with that, I will pass it over to you for pivoting done right.
Perfect. I was going to mention here too, for some of these videos, you'll see there's a little arrow or a circle going around. Sarah and I decided to pivot a little bit, and we used a new platform for this presentation rather than what we standardly use. So we're trying out a presentation through Canva for anybody that is familiar with that platform. We use it for some of our social media. And so one of the things that they have is they have these presentations that have interactive videos. What we're finding, and I'm not quite sure if it's internet connection or why, but some of the videos just aren't working quite well. So
we tried to be innovative.
it was our attempt trying to be innovative with a new presentation. They look really well when they work right, but I'm just a little bit hesitant now with internet connection and stuff on these on different platforms I'm not quite sure if they'll work quite well, but I just wanted to explain why you're seeing that little circle going around.
Also, that's a review for you for this particular presentation piece for Canva. May not work with all platforms. Yeah.
So pivoting done right. So in order to kind of conclude some of the examples and ideas and information that we shared with you tonight, we wanted to give some examples of pivoting that we've seen and done successfully. But we also want to open this up to you guys to see if you guys would like to provide any examples of shifts, changes, or pivots. You can just write us in the chat section if you want to share any pivots that you've done well, or like I said, just changes.
Or that you've seen, things that were interesting or exciting, or things that you've seen. If you have any things that you saw that you thought were interesting, and we're going to give you some examples, we'll be going through them, but you're welcome to type them into the chat box, because we'd love to just kind of share the community what everybody's working on and what's worked well and what hasn't worked for people too. So
absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to share a couple with you here. So Sarah and I recently had an interview with a local restaurant owner, Riley Kay. He owns a couple restaurants here in Lacombe, Alberta, Canada, Cilantro and Chive and Moe's Pizza. So with the ongoing situation and learning, he finds that he's making small adjustments just about daily right now. And I'm going to share 2 pivot points that he had done for his 2 restaurants that we would consider successful pivot points. So the first one's with his restaurant, which is called Cilantro and Chive. Beyond their dining experience, they also offer a unique selection of specialty cocktails, as well as a wide selection of craft beer. So what he did in order to maintain that unique experience that you receive when you go to his restaurant, Cilantro and Chive, they have offered drink kits in addition to their delicious meals. So not only during the last couple months of the pandemic, while the restaurant hasn't been open, were you able to order takeout, curbside delivery. I'm sure many of you guys have had that experience with many restaurants, but they also created those drink kits as well that they're able to send home with their I was going to say patients. I work in optometry, so I'm so used to referring to everybody as patients. Sorry, with their customers. So we thought that that was a really cool pivot that he did there. And then the other one that he did, he also owns Moe's Pizza. And what they did was they created take-home pizza kits, which we thought was really cool and a great way for him to leverage the increase in family time that a lot of people had, but still while offering an economical dining experience. So
really important for a lot of people right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was economical and it was something that families could do at home when they're finding themselves with some more time. So those are two what we would consider successful pivot points that Riley did that we wanted to share with you guys after we had our interview with him. I also wanted to give you another example of an industry that was hit pretty hard with the pandemic and how they kind of had to shift as an industry. And that industry is photography. I'm not sure if you guys have seen, I've seen quite a few photographers, so I think it's probably pretty good to assume that most of you have seen this, but photographers had taken to something that was called a doorstep photography project, which is where you would schedule a time with a photographer and they would come to your house and take pictures of you and your family on your front step. So obviously still maintaining that social distancing, and then supply you with a few pictures. I've seen that some photographers were charging for these shoots, but there were some photographers that were accepting donations, and some of them were doing it for free as well. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because this is a really good demonstration of the generosity strategy that we had talked about in these photography projects that they were doing, whether, like I said, for a fee or for a donation or for free. It was a way for them to still connect with their current and their future clients. So I think that that's a really good idea, or sorry, a really good example of the generosity as a strategy.
Yeah. So two more examples that I would bring into this, other industries that have struggled, pubs specifically, and gyms or recreational facilities and activities. So CBC actually did an interview with a bartender who created his own virtual bartender service. So from the comfort of your own home, you order the drink in question, whatever you would like. He packaged up and sent all the materials to your house. And then you had a pre-scheduled time where you both logged in and you had a special meeting where he teaches you how to make your drink, and you have a conversation just as though he was sitting across from you. And so it just chatting up your bartender. And so that was a really unique and innovative strategy. And then another one that actually comes from a connection of mine. He's a well-known brander who wrote the book Sticky Branding. And his name is Jeremy Miller. But he shared a story recently that was really amazing. And so it is a gym here in Canada that within 1 day notice of needing to be closed due to our regulations and COVID, they turned a virtual program and maintained 92% retention at full fee of their client base. They focused on coaching and building a community. So they created daily accountability and coach meetings with all of their clients. They gave all of their clients equipment to take home at no charge, the stuff that they would be able to do their workout programs from home. And then the programming side, they had games night and various programming things to really build the community. And so right now, revenue is actually up from last year. So that is a really cool and amazing example, and I wanted to share that. And then another one is, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, Duer, D-U-E-R. They are a clothing company, and they actually have changed the business model in order to.
A little bit, Sarah.
Oh, sorry. They have. Okay. Can you hear me now?
I heard you say their company name is Duer. You're not sure if you're pronouncing it right, and then you started cutting out.
Yeah, it's D-U-E-R. I spelled it just in case anybody wants to look it up. They changed their business model in order to adapt with the pandemic. So they lost 70% of their business in 1 week. And in order to adapt, what they're doing is that as a typical clothing company or retailer, typically they would make clothes and then try to sell them. What they're doing now, they've switched the business model on its head. They've got partners on board with this. They're doing online pre-sales model. They're basically creating a select variety of options.
You're cutting.
Okay.
I hate to interrupt you, but you are cutting out again.
That's okay.
Just a couple seconds there.
Yeah. So they're doing an online pre-sales model now, which is very unique and innovative. So what they're doing is they are creating a select variety of clothing that they've got partners, and they're putting this out to their partners, and then based on having a certain amount of commitment of interest to a specific item, then they're going to move forward and build, like, what do you say, not build, but produce those specific items. So it's a pre-sale. They're making it and then trying to sell it, and it doesn't sell. Now they're switching it. So they're actually creating that pre-sales factor. And then once they have a certain threshold met, then they will be producing the items. So they're saving themselves a lot of money by switching the business model from what it used to be. And they've got partners on board for that. And it looks to be like it's going to be a really successful pivot for them. So that's really exciting as well. Hannah, do you have anything else to add, or else I think we should talk to some of our group chat and question and answers.
Tom shared some pivots with us.
Yes.
So he says, I'm making inventory that I ordered but have not received yet, available for pre-order on my website.
Beautiful.
So that's similar to what you just mentioned then.
Yep. That's awesome. And I think that's a great, it ties beautifully. It really is a great model.
Absolutely. So then he also shared here that I have watched indie musician.
Indie.
Indie? Yeah.
Type of music, Hannah.
No, I know indie, but it doesn't say indie. I wasn't sure if that's just like I didn't know if it was supposed to be idle musicians pivot. I watched some musicians do daily and weekly live stream concerts. One group launched a weekly live stream talk show with guests. One musician took this is a good one. One musician took the t-shirts from her canceled tour and turned them into masks for sale.
That is amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Tom. That is really, really great. Love that.
Creative idea.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Your turn, Hannah.
So if nobody else has any other pivots to share, then we'll continue on to the next part, which is going to be our Q&A. Not sure if anybody has any questions. I don't see any typed in there. Maybe we'll just give you guys a second if anybody wants to ask any questions.
Maybe what we'll do, so Hannah, we'll give everybody a minute to type in their questions. I've got a couple other quick things I'll throw out there that were little pivots. So there was a chowder company, and this was, I think it was in Seattle, but it's definitely somewhere in the States. And then there was a sandwich company, and they were kind of situated next door to each other in a downtown area somewhere. And the interesting thing that they did to make it more economical for them to do deliveries is they actually partnered together, and they created packages of like the chowder and the sandwich, and it might have been a bakery too, but they partnered together. And so that was kind of the interesting thing, so that their deliveries and value offerings were improved by having both of them paired together.
You're getting out there again.
Okay. I was talking about the pairing. Did you hear the chowder and the sandwich company?
Yeah, and then it cut out there.
Okay. So it was very intriguing because they increased their value offering by pairing together, and they also cut costs as well by having a value offering where they delivered together, because those costs became shared. So That was another idea. And we will, I'm just looking in the comments right now, we will share our contacts. There's just one more. I think, Hannah, probably some people need to get going. So maybe what we'll do is we'll jump ahead to the contact slide in case anybody wants to write that down. And we can come back. We'll still answer any questions. If somebody else has another question, we can jump back into questions right from there.
I agree. So here's some references that we've provided for your convenience for anybody that wants to take a look at those. So in conclusion, would like to say, never stop looking for growth shoots of opportunity. We are here to help. For a limited time, we are also currently offering a 1-hour complimentary consultation. We also offer fully customized packages tailored to meet your specific needs. And we're also happy to scale packages to accommodate a variety of budgets. So here is our contact information. If anybody wants to reach out, there's our website, our email address, our phone. If, like I said, if you're interested in a 1-hour complimentary consultation to see if we're a good fit for your business, absolutely reach out. Would be happy to help. And then
we are on all the major social media platforms. So we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. So you should be able to find Synergize Solutions or Synergize Business Solutions there. I think on Twitter, we're Synergize Canada, right, Hannah? At Synergize Canada.
We're Synergize Canada, but everywhere else you should be able to find us under Synergize Solutions or Synergize Business Solutions. And one of the things with connecting, we would obviously love to connect with you, but we also regularly share tips and tricks as well. So if you want to stay tuned with some other piece of advice, then follow us on those social media platforms.
I love that, Tom. Yeah, I've seen, I was just reading Tom's comment about the retailers bundling. And that is one of the, that is definitely one of the areas that we've seen great success as well, is in creating bundles for sure. And also I will add that I've seen the same thing. There was bakeries that were actually selling bulk staples. So bulk flour, butter, those types of things, because obviously they weren't baking for the restaurant sector as heavily, and people needed those commodities. So it's really interesting to see when people take the creative approach to seeing, I mean, how you can leverage your resources and meet the market needs in a new way. Growth shoots of opportunity.
So yes, in conclusion, please do join us in 2 weeks from now on Thursday, June 11th, the same time. The topics we're going to be reviewing are leadership strategies, staying connected with your team, your re-onboarding plan, team building and morale within your business, customer service, and conflict management, and how to resolve disputes. So lots of good information there as well. I'm just going to put it back to this slide for now. And yeah, if anybody has any other questions for us, we are happy to stick around. We want to respect your guys' time as well. So if you guys need to pop off, totally understandable. And
we did start a little late as well. So I think we waited a little longer to start. So if anybody does have anything else, and also as Hannah mentioned, and it's there in that slide, we are offering 1-hour complimentary consultations. So that will be a lot more tailored and focused for your individual business needs. So reach out to us if you're interested. And yeah, we wanted to 100% thank you guys for being here. I do have some really funny pivots from history. If anybody's interested, just if somebody wants to, if you guys are typing things in, I'll give you a minute. Case in point, Starbucks actually began selling espresso makers and coffee beans. And then Howard Schultz, the owner creator, actually pivoted in 1983, and that's when Starbucks became what we know as Starbucks.
That is actually a really funny pivot.
It is hilarious. And so Wrigley, Mr. Wrigley from Wrigley's Chewing Gum, he began in the 1890s, and he was selling soap and baking soda as a salesman. I don't know, 1890s. So, but he was offering free chewing gum. That was his, I don't know, door-to-door sales tactic, his thing. And people liked the chewing gum more than they liked the soap and the baking soda. So he ended up switching to just selling chewing gum, and that's how Wrigley's chewing gum came to be. And one more for you, because I have to do it. I love it. Avon, actually, same thing. The guy was a book salesman. He was generosity strategy. He was giving free perfume samples while he was selling books, and he realized that his female clientele was more interested in the perfume than the books. So that's how Avon came to be. So some historical pivots for everybody.
Did you have one? Were we talking, or did I dream this? That was there one about Nintendo?
There is one about Nintendo. Yes.
Nintendo one.
Let me remember the one about Nintendo. I've written it. Let me see. I did write some notes on it because it was a little bit crazy. Nintendo began a long time ago, and I didn't get the exact date of when, but they have done everything from vacuum cleaners.
You're glitching out there. You can't.
I can't glitch on Nintendo. You guys got to hear this. They started out with playing cards, vacuum cleaners, instant rice, a taxi company, and a short stay hotel chain, which sounded a little suspicious. And in 1966, they started doing electronic games, and here we know Nintendo. So multiple pivots there. Absolutely.
Did you say a rice maker?
Instant rice. They were, I think they were ahead of the curve. It sounds like it was a long time ago that they were making instant rice. Oh boy.
Those are awesome. So yeah, really good examples of pivots. I mean, obviously some of them are a little bit humorous, but I think that nonetheless still interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right.
So I guess, yeah, if there's no more questions, I see Tom said definitely want the funny pivots. So maybe we'll look at what we can find. Do you want,
I have two more. If you're still here, Tom, I will give you more. So, okay, more. Okay. I've got two more. I'm prepared. Okay. So Nokia actually began out, like Nokia, the cell phone company, began in 1865 as a paper mill. They then sold rubber goods and moved into electronics before doing mobile phones in 1990, I want to say it was 3, and sold off all other divisions of the company. And that just held on to the mobile phone division. So they did a lot of things before they found something and then stuck to it. HP began in 1947, which blew my mind, as an engineering company. And then they started making electrical devices having to do with their engineering. It was engineering testing products. And then in 1968, they had actually created one of the biggest and first personal computers. It was a really, pre-computer era, let's say. And it wasn't until the 1990s that computers started to catch on, and HP switched their strategy and really jumped into the computer game. So that was, yeah. So there's some pivots for you. I had no idea about Nokia being a paper mill.
Well, I'm thinking that maybe for our part 2 webinar in a couple weeks, maybe we'll find some more funny pivots to throw in at the end there for you guys too.
There you go. Yep.
Perfect.
Should have saved some. That's okay. Good for you, Tom. Yeah, I found most of those on Forbes. So if you want to find those, I'm quoting them from Forbes. I was searching some historical pivots for fun.
We'll see what we can find for our next webinar. So unless there's
okay.
Oh. What did you say?
Oh, nothing. I'm good. Perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys for being here tonight, and we look forward to talking again soon. Bye, everyone.
Take care. Thank you so much for joining us.